Welcome to another episode of the Move.Talk.Thrive podcast. Emily here with you today. I have a very special guest today with me, joining me. We'll talk to you about her in a second. Lizzie is still off. She's still recovering. Thank you for sending your well wishes to her. And she says a big hello. She should hopefully be back next week. Thank you for all of your responses to the NDIS podcast. There's still a lot happening and a lot changing across the landscape, but there is lots of positive action that seems to be taken from lots of different allied health professionals and groups. So still just keep looking, making sure you're updated on that. Yeah, if there's any more information that we think is relevant to give to you guys, we will do an episode on that. But let me get started with today. So my guest that I'm talking to today, her name is Kara Walsh. She is the founder of the Purpose Company. Now you will hear all about her story, but I'm just going to read you a bit of her bio so you have a bit of an background about her. So the Purpose Company is a visionary organization dedicated to helping individuals uncover their true purpose and lead purposeful lives. With almost 30 years of experience, Kara has been a guiding light in spiritual and personal development. As an accomplished author, teacher, and expert in behavioral studies and executive leadership, Kara combines her profound knowledge with a genuine passion for inspiring others. Her work extends beyond professional realms as she is deeply committed to personal development, helping people not only achieve their goals, but also realize their intrinsic worth. In addition to her professional achievements, Kara is a devoted wife and mum of 3 and is committed to nurturing and inspiring greatness in others. Through her multifaceted career and personal life, Kara embodies a holistic approach to leadership and personal growth, continually encouraging those around her to strive for excellence and purpose. This was one of my most favorite conversations, I think, so far on the podcast. We unpack all things purpose, burnout. We talk about AI and the recent statistics. We talk about personal development, identity, mindset, you name it. It is full of so many good nuggets. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started.
We are child development obsessed, business besties, and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzie Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist,
and this is the Move.Talk.Thrive podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our episode today. I have the lovely Kara Walsh with me, which you have heard all about her bio in the intro. Funny story, me and Kara met in the gutter, I would say. Kara is one of my newer friends on the Central Coast, although we've been on the Central Coast for almost a year, so it's not that new anymore. But we met because her kids were playing out the front of our house because they only live a couple doors down. And then our kids have become friends, and we've become friends. And Kara is not only a friend, but an awesome business lady and does some pretty important stuff, which I think is so relevant to all of us today. Whenever I talk to her, I feel like everything is relevant that she says. It's so important what we talk about on here about personal development and knowing your values, knowing your why. And I thought she'd be great to talk to all of you today. And I want to ask her some questions and get some clarity. So welcome to the podcast, Kara.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So let's dive straight in. So I've given everyone a little bit of background at the start, but maybe just in your words, we'd love to hear a little bit about your career and what's that looked like for you, because you're not an allied health professional. So it's always good to hear from different people and maybe how you got to doing what you are doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a education background. So I went straight out of high school to university to become a school teacher, and I always thought that's what I was going to do. And so I did it. And I was in the education world for a number of years and thought, oh, I'll probably be here for a while, like as you do. Like you get into your career and you think, this is pretty much it. I've maybe got, I don't know, 12 to 15 years in me to be a teacher. That's what I was projecting. And it was a lot less than that, as it turns out, for lots of
Okay.
different reasons. But um, I I was there for probably 5 years as a high school teacher, and decided I'm done. I've had enough of this. Like, I loved teaching, and I loved the kids, and that's what made that decision, that transition for me so difficult. But I still had this internal um, frustration, this tension going on that I didn't expect. But I thought, I just need to figure out what this is about. And I knew in part that it had to do with leaving teaching and going into something else, because I just had this I don't know, big question mark on the inside of me, like, I've got a lot more in me and I need to investigate this and go on that journey. So I actually quit that job before I even knew what was happening next, which is really unlike me. That's not my MO at all, because I'm very strategic and planned out, generally. But um, the short version is, it took me into working for a non-profit organization, and I went into this role of personal development, and also leadership development, and ended up in an executive leadership position where I was across, working with a lot of people, but on that ground level, in as much as taking them on their own personal journeys to discover who they are, what their purpose is. And that's kind of how that creeped in. Like, I did not even plan that at all. This was all a surprise to me, what I ended up in. But I'm really grateful that it happened, because it's just what I'm all about. And I realized along the way that a lot of my teaching journey and skills that I learned as a high school teacher totally dovetailed into what I'm doing right now.
Mm.
Um, and ironically, I find myself back in the classroom from time to time running workshops, um, but just from a completely different angle, which it really excites me. I love doing that sort of work. So um, while I was working for that organization, I ended up starting my own business, on the side, the good old side hustle that, so many of us have these days, um, where I could start branching out into businesses and other community places, doing the same type of work, but just really, really broadening the scope in as much as who I can help. Like, there's really no one that is exempt from this topic of
No.
purpose. Nobody. So that's been really exciting, and a bit like, wow, I don't really know how this is all going to happen, but it's been happening. So um, that's kind of where I've ended up today. So that's been like, I would say a bit over 10 years now that I've been doing this type of work.
Yeah.
And that brings us to today, really.
To today.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people probably can relate to that sort of thought that you had at the start, where you go, okay, I'm going to pick my career, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm doing for, I mean,
Yeah.
you said 12 to 15 years, but I sort of thought, this is what I'm doing. This is my life for the rest of
Yeah.
my life. And it can definitely surprise us when we go through different seasons and life has to pivot or shift. And I don't know why it takes us by surprise, right? Like,
Well, it's happening more and more these days, especially, I think the millennials really kicked it off, in
yeah.
as much as becoming a little bit discontent with the status quo. But that's
Mm,
certainly only increased in the generations after that.
yeah.
Like, I think some of the current numbers around that right now, as far as Gen Z and Gen Alpha are concerned, is they may have like over 30 different jobs in their lifetime. And that's staggering. It's like, people from our generation or older than us would look at that and go, that's absurd. Like, what, how
Mm,
could you even fit all of that into the space of a lifetime? But if you were to say that to those younger generations, that's like, yeah, well, of course. Like, that's a no-brainer for them. Like, that sounds normal. And I think the workplace generally across the board is having this big pivot because and a lot of the older generation don't know how to handle it. You know, all the older bosses, you know, I'm trying to be like delicate in how I use that term older, but the boomers, the CEOs, they're like, how do I cope with this cohort of employees that I now have to look after that operate on such a different level to me and what I'm used to? And that's what the workplace in general is trying to navigate right now. It's tricky because there's a lot of questions that are coming up in people internally, and it actually, all of it, if not most of it, centers around this idea of purpose. And what their frustrations lie in is that they're actually not working within a job or an industry or a career that serves their purpose or fulfills it, in other words. So, yeah, big question marks around all of that people are asking right now.
Two questions. So millennials, are we millennials? What age are
We are,
millennials? Yeah.
we are millennials.
And then
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what's the generation after us?
Gen Z, as far as I'm
Gen
aware. Yeah,
Z.
yeah. Gen
And
Z.
then
Yeah.
Gen
Gen
what?
Alpha after that.
Oh, Gen Alpha. Okay.
After that. Yeah, yeah.
And so what age range are we talking about with Gen Z and Gen
Yeah, yeah.
Alpha?
Well, your Gen Zs are pretty much the ones that are just starting their careers right now, really.
Okay.
Your Gen Alphas are probably your high schoolers or your early university students. So there is a broad range. Like we're
Yes, that's
talking
a
like
huge range of people.
10 to
Yeah.
15 year like
Yeah.
age range that we're talking about in these generations.
Yeah.
And you know, who determines what they are? I don't know. Some like little man behind the curtain is
The
saying this
ABS or
is gonna
something.
yeah, this is who you are and this is who you are, and that's what we've decided. But anyway, it helps us in terms of trying to identify things anyway. So
Yeah, different trends in different people or
yeah.
like groups of people.
Yes.
So, second question. So, how do you know what your purpose is? That's like a big question, right?
That's what
Not
everyone's asking.
right. Yeah.
That's what everyone's asking. And it's not like it's actually very existential. And people have been asking the same question for eons,
Yeah.
like since the beginning of time, we could
Yeah.
say. And they're still asking it. But now they've started asking AI that question, interestingly.
Mm.
So
Mm.
one of the recent studies that I've come across is the top 100 uses for AI, and as much, you know, platforms like Chat GPT, which we all know, is the types of questions that it's being asked. It's tracked it over the last 12 months. So this is very current. And coming in at number 3 out of 100 was finding purpose.
Wow.
Number 3.
Yeah.
And I was just floored when I saw that, that people are asking that question to an AI platform. But what didn't surprise me is that they're asking the question because
Okay.
they always have been. A lot of people are unsure about what route to take to find the answers to those things because traditionally we expect those things to be answered through the education system.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, they don't. They don't get answered there in large part. Like there are exceptions, I will say that, but in large part, they don't get answered in the education system. And that is a big reason why so many people, like I think it's 77% of people, are now disengaged in their jobs.
Mm.
So they got pushed through this system, went to university, or maybe not, got into an apprenticeship, like whatever, whoever knows, whatever track they took to get into the job that they're in now. Well, 77% of those people are not happy
Mm.
about where they've landed,
That's
which tells me
huge.
it's huge. It's huge. And that's globally, but that specifically is across Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so you've only got 23% of people that are engaged in their job. They love what they do, they're happy to be there every day, and they feel some sense of fulfillment and meaning in their job. Only 23%.
Wow.
There's a 65%, which is the biggest group, right? 65% are not engaged. So that means they're still turning up to work and they're still doing their job, but they're quietly, internally, still not happy about being there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a much smaller percentage, only 12%, that are what they call actively disengaged. So that means they're turning up to work, or maybe they're not, they're just chucking a sickie every second day. But when they are turning up, they're very loud about the fact that they don't want to be there. Okay. So that is a current statistic for this year, 2025. But it's been very similar for many years. Those numbers have not changed much at all, maybe a percent here or there. So for a very long time, we've had a huge group of people disengaged in their jobs. And the question is why? Well, it's because they're not finding purpose or meaning or any sense of fulfillment in what they're doing. And that leads us all the way back, we circle all the way back to the millennials and the Gen Zs we were talking about, who in large part, 9 out of 10 of those are seeking purpose over a paycheck. So they will forego a higher paying job in the name of being able to do a job that they feel is purposeful and meaningful, and they can connect with, as you know, as far as fulfillment goes. So that's huge, especially in our climate right now, like the financial crisis that everybody is in. You would be thinking, well, everyone's just going to be chasing the numbers, everyone's just going to be chasing the money, but they're not. They would rather get a smaller paycheck, as it turns out, in the name of, I need to be true to my purpose. So I don't think that actually answered your question, because what you did ask was,
No,
how
but
do you find your purpose?
Well, hang on.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
but that was really helpful. That was really good. So when you say purpose, you said meaning or fulfillment. So is that kind of the definition of purpose, like living your purpose or being working in your purpose is being, no, the end result is being fulfilled.
Yeah, you do. You feel some sense of fulfillment, but
Yeah.
what you're doing is creating meaning
Yeah.
in whatever it is that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Does
And
that make
that's
sense?
different
Yeah.
for each person, because
Yeah.
we have allied health professionals listening. Obviously, I'm a speechy. We have a big speechy following, but Lizzie's an EP. We have lots of different allied health professionals. As an allied health professional, we go into our careers to help people. And so would that be someone's purpose, or is that not right? What I've just said.
To help people?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, that's right. But my question is, well, how? Because, like I said, I've been doing this over 10 years now, talking to, I don't know, thousands of individuals and groups. And a lot of the time they'll come to me and say, I just, I don't exactly know what my purpose is, but I do know that I want to help people.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is a common theme across humanity, if I could say that, because I talk to so many different types of people from all different demographics, walks of life, careers, like you name it. It's about as diverse as you can get. But that is a common theme, is that everybody wants to help everybody. And that's lovely. That's awesome. That's what we should be doing as human beings. But even though we know that, why are we still ending up frustrated? Right? It's because we've not actually been able to unpack internally what our individual expression of what helping looks like.
Right.
Okay, so you help people and I help people. but we do it in a very different way.
Mm.
And sometimes people can end up in a career where, you know, their heart is to help someone, and that's awesome. But if they've landed in something that doesn't align with what their purpose is, they're still going to be frustrated over time. They might start out, you know, really motivated and energetic and all the rest of it and really happy, but over time that wears off.
Mm.
When you're out of alignment with your individual purpose, that stuff wears off, and you still end up frustrated because you haven't found your why, you haven't found your thing. And I think sometimes people can feel guilty about that, especially if they are in a line of work, like all of the allied health professionals that are like, well,
Mm.
that is my job. I help people. Why am I frustrated? Well, now I feel guilty because I'm supposed to be happy about helping these people, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important to go on that journey to find out, okay, like, yeah, I know I want to help people, but I need to find out the very specific way that I do that. And I think what is probably one of the biggest revelations that people encounter along the way is that their purpose isn't actually tied up in their job.
Mm.
It's not solely in their job. And it's good if it can be expressed through their job, because we spend so much time in our careers and in our job. It takes up a huge portion of our lives. So we definitely want to see that expressed through our job, but it's not only there,
Mm.
right? Because if it was only there, you would be frustrated when you're at home, right? So that your purpose is also expressed in your home and through your family and through your friends and your community at large. Like, it is in every single aspect of your life. It's with the checkout lady at Woolworths. Like, it doesn't matter. It can be strangers in the street. There's no part of your life that should be exempt from the outworking of your purpose. If that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because we're a whole person. And that's
Yes.
what we say on here a lot. This is what we talk about with our employees that speak about, is I say you don't have to put on a professional persona and come in here. And then the minute you come in here, you leave who you are and, you know,
Mm,
what's happening in your personal life out the door. And we are looking at someone as a whole person. We're not two different people. But often that's how we're taught in the educational system to be. Like at uni, we have to put on a professional persona.
mm,
And then, you know, then we are ourselves outside of the session or with
mm,
the client, outside of being with the client. But we're a whole person and everything affects everything. So what's happening at work can affect you personally. What's happening
mm.
personally can affect you at work. So we have to be looking at ourselves holistically. So it makes perfect
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And purpose does that.
And
Absolutely.
so, um, can you give me some examples of maybe different people's purposes that you've worked with? Because obviously, like, um, or what's your purpose? Just, you know, just for different people, like, what are some examples of how people would say, this is my purpose?
Yeah. So my purpose, which I discovered like over 10 years ago now, when I was in the middle of all of that mess of, you know, career transition and asking myself these big questions. I was actually listening to somebody else talk about purpose, and I'd never like heard anyone talk about it in that specific way before. But while they were talking, I had my own epiphany, I guess you could say, where all of the different pieces of my life, which we just talked about, like we're a whole person, we've got all of the different parts of our life. It all came together in this one cohesive moment, and I understood what my purpose was in that minute right then, which was to inspire people to greatness.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, I was floored. I had to sit with that for a minute, well, many minutes actually, to try and digest what that meant. And when you look at that, it's only a few words:
Mm.
inspire people to greatness. It's very short, and it's like, I knew, because it's me and it's
Mm.
my purpose, I knew the depths of what that looked like and what that meant. But if I was to say that to somebody else, they might go, oh, that sounds really cool. That sounds catchy. But what does that really mean? What does that look like? Well, it means that every time there is another person in front of me, whether it's in my home, in my workplace, out at the shops, like at the school drop off, like whatever, I have an opportunity to inspire that person
Mm.
in their own life journeys. And as you can probably imagine, well, that is exponential. Those
Mm.
opportunities are exponential. And so if I'm aware of it, that's the thing. Awareness, self-awareness is key in this. Because if you're not aware of it, you can miss all the opportunities that are in front of you every day, right? And so I could have a day where I'm just like, I'm not working and there aren't many people around me, but I'll have an interaction somewhere and I can think, oh, well, I'm not going to have a very productive day, or this isn't a very meaningful day for me or purposeful day for me. But if I grab a hold of that one opportunity I have, it's actually serving my purpose
Mm.
in life. It's still like ticking that box, if you will, even though I don't like using that phrase too often. It's ticking the purpose box for me that day. And I can still say by the end of it, when I've gone to bed that night, this was a really purposeful, productive day for me.
Mm.
Even if I didn't go to work,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
fancy that. Like we've like culturally tied up all of our productivity and all of our self-worth in our career.
Mm.
And that's just a recipe for burnout, honestly.
Yes, we have spoken about this a lot on
Mm,
our podcast. We've had lots of different podcasts on burnout, but also like identity. And me and Lizzie
mm,
have worked through that ourselves in our journey of business and then being, our allied health professionals as well. And it's so important. That's what we feel like we've learned it through walking the journey, but
mm,
we've really tried to tell people, like this from the start. As soon as you step into a profession or a job, it's great to have excellence. It's amazing to do well, and we want to have a high standard, but it's not who you are at the end of the day. Anyway, everyone's going to be like, "Yes, Emily, we know this because this is what you say every single episode." But
well,
you're
it's
speaking our
important. It's
language,
important. Yeah.
Kara.
Good, good. It's important. And sometimes we got to hear things more than once, right? Until we really get it.
Yeah. It's particularly if you're an overachiever or you
Mm,
like to do well and you like to achieve
mm,
and you like to get those results and that gives you satisfaction when you do, when you do a good job at whatever it is, then yes, that is a definite can definitely tip over and become a weakness and tip into burnout. So with your purpose, is that sort of just like, that obviously just sounds like it's just who you are. It's
mm.
naturally in you, right? And then it's our job to sort of articulate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to articulate
Mm,
because what I discovered was that until I had that moment where I could put language to what I was feeling, I wasn't fully self-aware of it. And that's where a lot of my frustration was lying, is I had this internal struggle that I didn't have words for.
mm,
And so when you go through this process, and this is what I do with people, which is like such a privilege, I get to take people through this process of articulating what their purpose is and giving them words to use similar to mine, but it's theirs.
yeah.
um, Giving them words to use, because without language we cannot communicate, right? We can't communicate it to others, but we also can't communicate it to ourselves. And it might, sometimes it can come off a little cheesy and a little bit like vision boardy, like
Airy
whatever,
fairy.
which airy fairy, like big poster on the wall that just is there to take up space. But it's not that, because I mean, has proven this as well, that whatever you've got focus on, whatever you're focusing on, is what's got your attention, and that is actually going to be what manifests
Yes.
essentially.
Yes.
So um, using that principle, it's like I can't just mosey on through life and go, oh, well, I know I have purpose and I know it's in me somewhere deep down in there. So I'm just going to rely on the fact that it makes its way out and does what it needs to do without me really being proactive in it. If that was the case, we wouldn't have finding purpose as the top three questions being asked of ChatGPT right now.
Mm.
So obviously that's not working. So yes, articulating it is key. It is so, so, so important. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. And that's why they come to me and they ask me, hey, can you help me find the words for this?
Yeah.
And we do
Yeah.
every single time. I'm not even kidding. Like every single time we find the words for it. And it really is a moment of they really feel awake, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, which is really, really cool. It's fun to watch.
It's a
Um,
moment of clarity.
it is a moment of clarity, and that is a big part of what people are looking for is clarity and also direction. A lot of
Mm.
people come to me and say, I just need some direction. I'm lacking direction. I don't know which way to go. And purpose provides that. It
Mm.
becomes your guiding system in life, because once you know it, you're not going to go in a direction that doesn't serve it, right? Like
Yeah.
that wouldn't make sense. So it actually is one of, if not the most important thing to have down in life.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we see it as a luxury, not a necessity in large part.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. People aren't, or is it people don't take the time or don't prioritize it or they don't realize that you can articulate it, or it's a lack of self-awareness, like you said.
I think it's all of those things. And I,
Yeah.
I think it's also a misconception that they can't afford to do it, in as much as, well, is purpose really going to pay my bills? Right.
Right.
Um, but that is just completely wrong way of thinking about it. Because as we've discussed, you can actually find purpose in your work,
Yes.
right? Um, so people feel stuck a lot of the time. They feel stuck in the burden of, I've got to pay this mortgage, I've got to pay those bills, I've got to put my kids through school, I've got to put the food on the table. So all of those things, which is common to everybody, make them feel stuck and unable to pivot or move. Um, and there's a lot of fear around that as well, because there's a lot of what ifs. What if I make the wrong move? What if we end up worse off than we are now? All of those things prevent people from taking action in this stuff. But it's so important. It's so important to take action in it, because what I find a lot of the time is that when people do give themselves that time to unpack all of it, the clarity comes about what to do next. The direction comes,
Mm.
which way to go. And that often solves a lot of those problems that they've been burdened by for so long. But
Mm.
yeah, so it's just a bit of a mindset shift that has to take place around the whole concept. Like, no, it's not a luxury. Like, it's not a, oh, I'll do that later thing. Like, oh, yeah, it's kind of down in my list of, things to do. And I'll get to it eventually. No,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it can't be seen that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're a person who wouldn't naturally be inclined to sit and reflect and think deeply, kind
Mm.
of like myself sometimes. I get, you get, I have to really make sure I set time aside because I know how important it is. But when I was younger, that wasn't my personality at all. I was go, go, go. So if you're someone sort of who's not inclined to sit and, or not even sit, but reflect. I think reflection is the key because you can reflect doing anything, right? You don't need to sit down
Mm.
to reflect.
Yeah.
But then that's something that just could easily get pushed to the side and just sort of
Oh, yeah.
go with the flow.
Absolutely, because we live busy lives, don't we?
Yes.
Um, but the problem with that is we use busyness
Mm.
as a way to feel purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
We think that the busier I am, the more purposeful I'm being. And that's not true.
That is such a big thing, what you've just said right there.
Yeah, it is. That's, you can take
Yeah.
that one to the
Where does
bank.
that come from, do you think?
Self-worth,
Yeah, okay.
or lack of
Yeah.
self-worth is, it's that mindset of, or that belief of, I find all of my self-worth in how busy I am or
Mm.
how busy I appear to be, because busy people are important people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Because the moment, like, and you mentioned high achievers before, and they're just a victim of this in a big way, is the moment you stop and you just do nothing, are you comfortable with that? Are you okay to just sit and do nothing? Or do you find yourself reaching for your phone, or thinking about all of the chores around the house that have to be done, or all of those errands that you haven't done yet? And does the list keep running through your mind? And if that happens, and I think that does to most of us on some level, right?
Yeah.
Some more than others. But I feel like if that's happening to you, you're actually finding your self-worth in what you can accomplish,
Mm.
rather than finding your self-worth in the fact that you're a unique individual and
Mm.
you're worthy just because of who you are,
Yeah, you're a great
not
human.
because of what you can do, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so what do? We fill up our schedules. We make sure that that calendar is filled to the brim. Because if it's not, if there's any moments of opportunity there where we actually get a moment to ourselves to reflect or to do something to recharge or whatever it might be, well, for some reason that really affects our identity and our self-worth, which is just like, look, it could be a cultural thing. I think in large part it is a cultural thing, because especially given social media this day, we're just
Mm.
constantly
Yeah.
bombarded with images and videos and all the rest of it, of people that are out there hustling and like getting it done and being high achievers and all the rest of it, and we start comparing,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But purpose deals with comparison.
Yeah.
It absolutely deals with comparison.
Mm.
So yeah, look, it's pretty important. But obviously I think that because that's what I do.
You've dropped so much gold. So if your purpose, what you said, so does purpose change, do you think, over different seasons in life or
No,
as you change age in life or anything?
no, I truly believe it doesn't. I believe everybody has one central purpose, but many expressions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where you see it played out through those different seasons of life and age and all the rest of it. And parenthood, or empty nesters, or even retirement is, well, you don't become redundant the minute you retire, right? Or that you don't have any kids at home anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and unfortunately, that's where a lot of people have tied up their purpose in,
Mm.
is in things that are temporary.
Mm.
Because the minute those things come to an end, they are left wanting and they do not know what to do. And they feel helpless and they feel worthless, because it's like, well, what have I got left to give? But purpose is it's not seasonal. It is
Mm,
a lifetime.
mm,
But the way it looks, the way it is expressed can change through those different seasons. But the big why behind it stays the same.
mm.
It's like, well, I can inspire people to greatness for the rest of my life in some way, even if it's when I'm 90 and I can't work anymore, but I've got a dozen grandchildren around me. Well, they're going to be my focus in that season of life, right? So, I mean, I get the odd client here and there who is either approaching retirement or has retired, and they're like, what do I do now? I still feel like I've got a lot to give, but I'm just not sure what it's meant to look like. And I actually really love those sessions, getting to unpack with those people, because once we get through that process, they are really lit up. Like they just come alive again, because they get that understanding of, wow, like I don't just have to be set out to pasture now. Like I can I can keep going. And I think it is so important. Like, my
Yeah.
gosh, by the time people retire, you still might have another 30 odd years left to live.
No, you'd
Like
hope so.
imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine having that amount of time and doing nothing with it.
Mm.
Like that freaks me out. Like I just don't ever, wow. I can understand why the, depression rates go through the roof uh, at that time of life as well, which is a super sad thing. But purpose fixes that too, can I
Yeah.
add?
Yeah, because your
I've
purpose
even,
doesn't
yeah,
change.
no, it doesn't. And I've had younger clients as well that have suffered with depression, that have done a full 180 on that. When they've discovered their purpose, it's
Mm.
actually helped decrease their clinical depression,
Wow.
which is massive.
That's
Which is, yeah,
amazing.
it is. It is massive.
That's
It is.
amazing.
So there's a lot to be said for it.
I am loving this chat. I'm loving this chat. So, can we go back to touch on a bit on burnout?
Yeah.
Specifically with allied health professionals, it's a hot topic. It's a very, like me and Lizzie did a podcast on burnout, and the stats that we were looking at were it's very high among allied health professionals. There's a lot of like compassion fatigue, emotions involved and that type of thing in
Right.
everyone's care. So it doesn't matter if you're a speechy, physio, allied, like EP. So with like, what are your thoughts with purpose and burnout? Obviously, I'm not even talking about like the high achievers. I'm just
Mm,
talking about if you give a lot of yourself
mm,
in a role and that is your purpose in some sort of form,
mm.
are you still like, can you still burn out if you're being purpose led?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I do, because I think a lack of boundaries still affects people with purpose.
Yes.
And learning how to manage that, even if it's purpose led,
Mm.
you've got to learn how to manage that, because we all have different capacities, right?
Yeah.
Um, some can just do a lot more than others and not burn out, and like whatever, that's just their wiring. Um, I don't understand the science behind that. I don't even know if there is a science behind it. Um, but again, it's about self awareness and understanding what your limits are,
Mm.
and being okay with setting the boundaries around those limits and around what your capacity is.
Mm.
And you do have to be careful that if you are purpose led, you can sometimes feel like, well, I need to be constantly giving of myself because it's purposeful.
Mm.
Um, but that's probably not the wisest route to take, because who are you actually helping ultimately if you have burnt out? Well, nobody. Nobody's going to be able to get anything from you at that stage. So I do think it is something you still have to be aware of. But I think it helps in as much as a lot of our burnout, and I don't know if this is true of allied health professionals or not, but I'm just thinking in a general sense. I think a lot of our burnout stems from comparison and comparing ourselves to what others are achieving. Because you look at someone else who, look, they could be the same age as you, they could have a career that's the same as yours, they could have like the same amount of children as you, like let's just say on paper they're the same person as you, but for some reason they can achieve a lot more. And you can look at that and go, well, what's wrong with me? And why can't I do that? And so immediately you start to try and live up to that expectation that is perceived, by the way. No one else is putting that on you except yourself. Right?
Expectations.
Right? Expectations. No one's saying to you, hey, can you be more like that person down the road, please? No one's saying that to you. You're saying it to yourself. So being self-aware of that, knowing what your limits are, what your capacity is, and not comparing yourself to others actually helps you be, well, more purposeful, more intentional about living out your purpose and doing it in a way that actually maximizes that potential, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comparison is a big thing. It's always been a big thing, but it's even harder these days, I feel,
Yeah.
with social media.
Mm.
Because it's always there. If you're
Mm.
checking social media though, and
Yeah.
that's also having a boundary with social media and
Yeah.
having a boundary, even you choose what accounts you look at. You
Yeah.
choose, I mean, obviously there's like the AI stuff, but you can choose
Mm.
what accounts you follow. You can choose what you're letting or allowing yourself to be influenced by.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
um, even in that, we need to have boundaries and discernment with how we're using our social media. I do say that to my girls at work as well.
Absolutely. And I had a huge breakthrough, I guess you could say, with that very thing, like probably only 6 months ago. So this is like recently. And I had in my feed, I was following like a bunch of professionals, actually, like a bunch of doctors, a bunch of like nutritionists or naturopaths or whatever, like people that were really uh, concerned about the body and how to be healthy and like all of this stuff. And because I'm a mom, well, I was looking at all that content to do with my children's diet and everything. And I followed those people, and this is where we have to be careful, right? Whatever they're producing is really well-meaning, and it wasn't actually an issue on their end. It was an issue on my end that I had let um, fear masquerade as wisdom. And what I mean by that is I was looking at these accounts and trying to learn from them in the name of wisdom and gaining more knowledge about that topic myself. But what it was actually producing in me was fear,
Yeah.
because I couldn't possibly live up to all of those benchmarks that were being set in
Yeah.
front of me. It was impossible, and I was falling short constantly. And so I was just spiraling in this pit of depression and fear around all of that. And it took me a while to realize, like, I thought I was pretty savvy about that stuff. How did I end up so far down in this pit? Well, thankfully, one day I realized, and I stopped following every single one of them. I took all of them out of my feed. Anything to do with parenting, anything to do with health, every single doctor. Now, I had to do that just to separate myself from the issue and kind of be able to come out of that pit, right? Now, like I said, it wasn't an issue on their end because what they're saying is truth, and like
Yeah, it's good
research and all of it,
information.
it's good information. But I was coming at it from the wrong angle, see?
Mm.
And so I didn't unfollow them thinking, oh, I'm never going to look at that content again.
Like
Like,
you're not prioritizing your
right,
health or
right,
prioritizing parenting or doing good things for your kids.
exactly. I just had to, at least for a season, set a boundary around that until I was internally in a better place to then be able to, take on that information in a more healthy way.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, all that to say, be careful with your social media and
Yeah.
what you're consuming. And, you know,
Yeah.
if there's anything or anyone that you follow that actually produces some type of fear in you, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it, because it's just so unproductive and not worth it, and it just takes
Yeah.
away from your own quality of life and well-being, which is the opposite of what they're trying to achieve. So
Yes, your mental health and
yeah,
well-being. And
that's
so
right.
that fear would look like if you're having that the fear is kind of then stems out into, you might go, oh, I can never live up to that. So that's the comparison or
Yes.
low, it might just make you feel a bit lower or low self-esteem or self-worth or
Mm,
whatever. It's all relating back to you feeling like you're not enough. So that's, yeah, I think that's so important.
yeah.
And particularly when you are trying to do the right thing
Mm,
and trying to get information, um, sometimes as well, like you're not really controlling when you receive the information. That's what I've found is difficult because I'm also got across like lots of parenting channels and things
mm,
like that. And I might just open up my phone to, I don't know, look at something and it comes up and I'm sort of not in control of how, like when I've received it or how I've received it, but I've received it. And then I might start
mm,
freaking out and I'm like, hang on, I wasn't in the right mindset to receive that
mm,
information. So
mm,
I felt like it's a little bit out of my control as well when things like that pop up on socials. And it's very hard especially when you have a brand and you've got to get on social media for, we share the podcast episodes, we're always sharing videos of what I'm doing in clinic. It's very difficult then to get on and not see stuff. So
mm. Yeah.
it's,
No,
yeah,
it's true.
setting
It's
boundaries.
a yeah, it's a love-hate relationship with social media right now,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, but
Like
it's not
it's
it's not an all bad thing. It can be really good. It's
no,
just
yeah,
again, like you said, it's coming back to boundaries, knowing your purpose, being intentional, knowing your why and knowing what you're doing with your time, how you spend your time as well, and what your values are.
yeah, all the above. That's
I
right.
have absolutely loved this conversation. I'm sure everyone else has as well. Um, is there any advice that you would give? Last question, any advice that you'd give to somebody who is feeling like they've listened to this and they're going, oh my gosh, I don't really know what my purpose is. I am that person that Kara identified. I'm in that percentage of people who are not enjoying what I'm doing. I'm this age, or I'm just really not sure. What would you recommend that people do? Where do they start?
Um, Talk to me.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Come and see
Yes.
me. Have a conversation. Like, because this is literally what I do. Is
Yeah.
I help people on that journey and unpack that for them, or with them rather, and also from that point of, well, we've articulated your purpose, we then can create some really practical steps and strategies around what that looks like, whether it's a career choices or just day-to-day living, like whatever the need may be, we create a lot of strategy around that too, so that that purpose doesn't just remain that catchy phrase on a poster on your wall, right? It
Yeah.
actually comes to life, and that's the whole point. But if having that conversation, like you're not ready for that conversation, well, you can actually start asking yourself in those moments of reflection those questions as well. Things like, well, what frustrates me, what gets me going to the point where, excuse me, where I just want to get up and I want to change the situation. I want to get involved. I want to help cause some type of improvement in the world. Um, what's the one big thing in the world that I would love to be a part of fixing? These are really big questions that they don't ask you at school, right? But they should. But it's never too late to ask yourself those questions. Doesn't matter how old you are. You can still ask those questions. You can ask yourself those in addition to things like, well, what am I really passionate about in life? What are some dreams or ambitions that I've had that I've squashed down or pushed to the side because I didn't think that they were a good idea, or but I still, I can't let go of them. They keep coming back at me, and there's a whole bunch of directions you can go with it, but they actually all end up landing in one place. All the answers to those questions, they land in one place, and that tells you what your purpose is about. So yeah, definitely do not ask AI. Can I say that? Wow. Like, I still
It's
can't
all
believe that.
about
I'm still
connection.
reeling on that number. But anyway, because, and the point is that AI is designed to actually flatter you, tell you what you want to hear, which is super unproductive. Like, you can literally type in there, hey, I want to be a dragon one day. Can you tell me how to do that? And it will. There's no critical thinking. It doesn't say to you, are you sure about that? Do you think that's a really good idea? Maybe we should think about something else. There's none of that. It's just like, hey, look, here's a strategy for you to become a dragon. Like, talk to a real person. It sounds ridiculous, but it's so
It
true.
does.
Um, talk to a real person,
Yeah.
whether it's me or somebody else, but it's good to talk to somebody that can be objective about your experience as
Mm,
well.
mm,
Um, and not judgmental, and because we carry in us for a really long time some ideas that might feel silly, and we need a safe space to be able to voice those without being judged. So yeah, that's my advice, is like, whatever it looks like, take yourself on the journey of discovery, like, and it can be slow if it needs to be, but you got to start somewhere. um, don't keep pushing it down the list of things to do. Don't keep perceiving it as a luxury, but it's actually the most necessary thing for your life. um, yeah, that's my advice, so hopefully that's
yeah.
helpful.
Well, it's get support as well, right? Don't try
Yes.
and stick it alone.
No, we are not an island. we
No.
we have to do life in the context of community, whatever that community looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do people find you?
Look, I've got a website. It's just thepurpose.company, or they can find me through socials as well, Purpose Company. Um, really easy to contact through that, sending me emails or whatever. Um, I'm reachable through all of those things, just like everybody else, really. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cara. This has been phenomenal conversation. I think you've left a lot of gold nuggets for people to sit and think about. And I hope that this really helps you, no matter where you're at in your journey to finding your purpose.
Mm.
Even if you know what your purpose is, that it's always a good reminder and a good sort of centering conversation. And if you have no idea, then you know who to talk to now. You can talk to Cara. Talk to Cara. Um, but thank you so much, Cara, and thank you so much for your time. It has been amazing. And Lizzie will be back next week. She is still a little bit on the mend, but yeah, until then, we will be back in your ears next week.